Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Quick slurp. It's good to be back. I hope everybody's well, and especially warm welcome to all of the hundreds of new followers and subscribers who started following my channels over the Christmas break when I wasn't even doing anything. So thanks a lot and welcome. In this evening's video, by the way, quick welcome to everyone who's watching this live. Sharon Smith, Papa Royson, M. Duffy, Peter Heddich, hi there, Ramble and Root, Malcolm Lane, Armand Madassa, Spherical Hang, Little Carol, Yatchek, Audrey Vincent, hi Audrey, Mad Mountain Man, Sue Benison, and Diogen, that's a new name. Good evening. Anyway, let me get into it. There is one thing when it comes to moving house that is in everybody's interests, everybody's, right? And that is shorter transaction times, okay? If you are a buyer and you're serious about buying, you want the purchase to happen quicker. If you don't want the purchase to happen quickly, I would question whether or not you actually want to buy a house or not, okay? But if you're a serious buyer, do you want to wait 6 months or do you want to wait 3 months to move into a new house? And the longer you wait, the bigger the uncertainty and the bigger the chance that you're going to waste money on fees and stuff if the deal fails for whatever reason. If you're a seller, obvious reasons. You want to be able to move on with your life, whatever your reasons for selling are. You want to get a sale done, you want to get it wrapped up and move on. And if you're an agent, nothing costs you more than a failed, fallen through deal. Literally nothing wastes more agents' money than that. And it's bad for your business, and it's very good for your cash flow if deals are shorter. And if deals are shorter, few of them fall through as well. So you lose less money when you have faster transaction time. So if it's in everyone's interests, if it's so obvious, so obviously beneficial to everyone involved for deal times to be shorter, what's stopping it? In tonight's video, I'm going to read you an email that I got today via the Buy Me a Coffee membership platform from a seller who is just tearing her hair out trying to decide which agent to use whilst they all behave appallingly badly and don't actually, none of them showing her what she would like from them. And it's a fantastic case study about why it's so important as a seller to get your agent choice right and exactly what kind of things can go on just during the process when you're trying to actually choose. Excuse me, still got the tail end of the cough. And I'll come on to that in a minute. So if it's in everyone's interests for transaction times to be shorter, what's preventing it? There is a long list of things, actually. I mean, literally a list of about 10 different problems that all contribute to deals taking too long and falling through. But the biggest one of all, by far, and I would say that if you solve this problem, if we solve this problem, you and I, buyer, seller, agent, whatever you are, and I, if we solve this problem, it's 50% of the problem. And the rest of them will be like running downhill to solve when you solve the biggest problem. And the biggest problem is this. Long sole agency contracts, because those are the things that enable overvaluing to happen. Everyone knows overvaluing happens. Everyone's aware of it. Almost everyone's aware of it. I mean, it's quite worrying if there are any sellers out there who are unaware of the common practice by agents of overvaluing. Some are worse than others, but everyone does it to an extent. But that overvaluing is only possible if you as an agent have got a seller locked into a contract for a long period of time, long enough to wait for them to get so frustrated that they eventually reluctantly agree to drop their price to a price where you might be able to sell it and make a fee. And without them being locked in for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you've got no prospect of overvaluing and then actually earning a fee from it. And if you remove long sole agency contracts, which is entirely possible, and we can do this, just create public awareness that whoever you decide to sell your house, you just point blank refuse to sign a sole agency contract that is longer than X weeks. I say it's 6 weeks with a 2-week notice period. Up to 12 weeks is kind of acceptable, but still a little bit too long, really, because there is only one reason. There is only one reason alone. There is no other explanation or reason for an agent wanting to lock you in. Think of it as handcuffs, right? To handcuff you to their estate agency for 6 months. There's only one reason they do that. It's because they know that once the disappointment arrives, that they've let you down, not got you enough viewings, not got you any offers, or not got you offers at anywhere near the price you wanted, they know you're going to want to leave them. But you won't be able to because you signed a long sole agency contract. And the number one reason that I hear sellers give when they contact me and say, whoops, I did this, is they said, I didn't even realize it was a thing. I didn't read the contract properly, and I didn't realize that this was a thing that I had to even think about or worry about. And as those of you who've been watching the channel for a long time know, I've always said to you, whoever you want to go with, if they're saying they want 12, 16, 20, or even 26 weeks sometimes, you simply say to them, no, I won't go with you. I simply will not go with your agency if you insist on that long a sole agency contract. But if you reduce it, then I will. And this evening's case study, that literally is an email I got today, proves that all agents will go, yeah, okay then. If it's a reasonable ask, they will reduce it. And so it is within the power of all of you to refuse a long sole agency contract. And when that happens, and this benefits buyers as well, of course, doesn't it? Think about it, right? If we can start to really create public awareness that a long-term sole agency contract is what's the word I'm looking for? It is absolutely disadvantageous to you as a seller. And there is no reason that you have to accept it. All right. And the biggest firms are usually the worst culprits of this. Okay. But if we can get public awareness spread that goes, listen, use whoever you want, right? Use whichever estate agency you want, but just make sure you change the length of the contract to 6 weeks with 2 weeks notice. All right. Because if you want to leave them because they've let you down and you can't, that's a nightmare situation. Now, how do I know that we can fix this problem? Well, I spent 2025 doing a case study project with an estate agent in Kingston called Carrington's, right? And this time last year, Carrington's market share of completed sales in Kingston was about 3%. A lot of agents in Kingston, right? And at the end of 2025, their market share of completed sales was 9%. So they tripled their market share of completed sales, right? At the same time, their fees went up from 1% to 2%. And why would that be? Think about that, right? Whether you're a buyer or a seller or an agent, think about that. Why would they be getting people to pay more money or to agree to pay more money? Well, when you can say to sellers, our average sale time is this, and we're selling over 90% of everything we list in this period of time, what you're actually saying to the seller is, I'm offering you a much higher degree of certainty, and I'm not locking you into a long solidity contract. So if we don't deliver, you can just go anytime. Now, before Carrington's began this project, their average time to completion of the properties they sold, which wasn't very many of what they listed, the average time from listing to completion was just under 200 days. It was 198 days, right? Just under 200 days from listing to completion if they sold your property, which in many cases they didn't. Since they adopted my approach to selling stuff, that has come down to 111 days, just over 3.5 months from listing to completion, right? You think about, at the moment, the average time for the rest of the country, once they've found a buyer, if the deal doesn't fall through, is 5 months. And Rightmove says that average time on market is 60 to 70 days. So 2 to 2.5 months to find a buyer, and then 4.5 to 5 months to complete. So you're talking about 6 to 7 months of the properties that sell. And now here we're talking about 3.5 months. So we've almost halved the total time it takes to sell a house following this process. Okay. Now, this video is not going to be about how we've gone into that. There's too much detail about exactly how it works. But it doesn't evolve into any technology, and it doesn't involve any legislation. It just involves creating the right incentives for all the parties involved. And that includes conveyancers, surveyors, mortgage brokers, the agent, the seller, the buyer, all of those things. Just creating the right incentives. And all those incentives are aligned in favor of a higher chance of a successful transaction in less time. And it works. Now, those of you who've been following me for a long time would already know this, but I have a property website called bestagent.co.uk, which I've been building for quite a few years. And it's quite a few years because I've been bootstrapping it with a very small team, but building it to be a national UK housing transaction marketplace where it actually takes from the moment you register as a buyer or a seller looking for a home or an agent, right the way through to completion. That's the platform that we're building. And the objective is not to take large swathes of the market share. The objective is to have much faster transactions for every agent and buyer and seller that wants them. Buyers, you haven't got so much control because you're kind of stuck with whichever agent has listed the house you're selling. But sellers, you do have control. You have control over your choice of agent, okay? Now, the challenge is, how do we take it from, okay, Carringtons have nailed it, right? They're really happy. Their sellers are happy. I mean, their sellers couldn't be happier. In fact, I think actually I've got a photograph here of a card they got that they put in their window just before Christmas. Where is it? I want to get this. Here it is. Right. So this was put in the window of Carrington's, December 2025. This is from a seller, right? And it says, "We hope you will accept this gift with our heartfelt thanks for selling our house. We thoroughly appreciate the hard work and effort you put into the sale process, and it has been a pleasure to work with you to obtain a successful completion. We wish you continued success in the buying and selling process. That is the Carringtons way." And the Carringtons way is, by the way, why they tripled their market share. Because step number one, golden rule of this process, is that when they go around to a seller to talk to them about selling their house, they do not give a valuation. Okay. When the sellers say, well, hang on a second, I need to know how much I'm going to get, otherwise I don't know if I can afford the next place. To which the answer is, using our process, you will know for certain exactly what your house is worth in 5 weeks from instructing us. Whereas all of the other agents are plucking figures out of the air with, as when I read you this seller case study, even one agent giving a 100 grand spread on what it could be. So they're not valuing, they're making wild guesses to win your business. And that creates bad expectations, and it also harms the chances of actually getting a proper market rate for the property. So what Carrington says, and the reason that these sellers are happy to pay a much higher fee, because they say, we don't guess on what it might get. We don't make predictions. Other agents will all make a guess, a prediction. Who are you going to believe? We just stick to this process because this process delivers a better outcome more consistently than any other process. And the process ensures a very large number of buyers coming through the door, which ensures a decent number of competing offers, which ensures that you have got full market price for your house in a very short space of time. And of all the properties that they sold with this method, the average is 32 days on the market to get an agreed deal. It would actually be less, but they've got so many buyers bidding on each property that the actual offer negotiation process itself can take a week. And so sellers are going, well, that just makes sense. And you're not trying to blow sunshine up my backside about some amazing price. You're not telling me that you love my house. You're just telling me we don't even really need to talk about the house yet. This is the process that we use for all properties. And these are the results we get from it. Okay. And sellers are going, no one else is doing that. Can't argue with it. And as long as you actually do deliver the number of viewings and offers, then yes, I accept that I will be getting market value. So you've just told me you can deliver full market value for my house faster than any other agent. Okay. Now I understand why you pay charging 2%. Not going to argue. And it's that straightforward. So whether you're a seller or an agent, I can't believe that. I've only just noticed that. My missus gave me a cup of tea and I did not see that. I can't believe she's done that. Okay. I'll have to have words with her after this. That's very funny. And it's completely derailed me. Now, I wonder how many of you commented on that in the live chat. So, back in November, I did a little roadshow of events with agents around the country. In Manchester, in Bristol, and in London. And they were one-day events where I basically presented this no valuations process and the results of it, and allowed all of the agents who attended those events to talk to the Carringtons in person and ask questions about the process. And the idea was that I wanted to find some more agents like Carringtons to work with, like I have with Carringtons, to prove that this works everywhere. But two unexpected things happened. First of all, there are too many agents that want to do it scattered around the country, and I simply would be spread too thin and it would take up full time. And my full-time job is not doing that, it's running Best Agent. Secondly, and this was the unexpected and unwelcome finding, but a very, very important one, is that some of the agents I spoke to who wanted to go ahead with this process said, we don't think we're going to do the no valuations part because that's all we know how to do. We just do valuations, and we like everything, but we don't have any interest in improving the industry. We just want to beat our competitors. We don't have any interest in improving the industry. And this hit me like a ton of bricks. And I heard it from a one-man band agent, and I also heard it from a large multi-award-winning chain agent. We don't care about improving the industry. And what it made me realize is that to agents who have that attitude, there's no point in me trying to help them. Right? I mean, I could help them, but I don't want to help them because they don't want to improve the industry. They don't want to change the way it's done. They want to keep overvaluing because they don't believe. And even when you present them with cold, hard proof that it works, and actually allow them to speak to the agent that's doing it, who says, yes, it works. This is what I've done. This is the before, this is the after, and it works. Too many agents are like, I'm too scared of the business I might lose in the meantime, in the short term, if I started changing this. And I'd have to change all of my processes. I'd have to change all of my marketing. I'd have to change all of my free valuation function on my website. And actually, I think that sellers in my area wouldn't like this. Like, they're different in my area. And do sellers in different parts of the country move house for different reasons? No. Do they want to move house any slower or faster? They all want to move house faster. They all want market value of their property. That's all they care about. So I witnessed this denial and delusion from many, but not all, thankfully, many agents who just aren't going to change. Even when you show them the writing on the wall that if you lie to customers to win their business, it doesn't work out as well as if you tell the truth to customers, who then pay you more money and you sell them shorter. Now, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I'm not going to waste any more of my time or my life persuading those agents that the way they're currently working, which is why their fees are low and why their transaction times are too long, I'm not going to waste any more time with that. That's right. It's pointless. Excuse me 1 second. And I need to get into this seller case study. Sorry, I'm rambling. I got distracted by this. Now, just back to Best Agent, right? I actually had a major piece of really exciting news just before Christmas with Best Agent. I am putting together a board of directors on Best Agent. I have put together a provisional board of directors. It's an astonishing array of very well-known names within the industry itself, plus some even bigger characters from outside the property industry who are very well-known or come from very well-known large companies. And I put that board together partly to help with the investment raising I'm about to be doing as well. And to all of the investors who follow me, who've been messaging me and saying, hey, we'd really like to talk to you about Best Agent. Thank you for your patience. I have a long waiting list of investors that want to talk about it. And I'm preparing stuff for all of you so that we can actually get that ball rolling soon. Because I need the investment, because I then need to put in place the team, because we are going to be coming to the market with the intention of creating an alternative to the existing property websites for more serious movers who want to move more quickly, and specifically the agents who would like to deliver better outcomes. Okay. And I want to make it easier. The whole purpose of Best Agent is to make transaction times shorter by allowing serious, sensible sellers to find those agents that actually put the transaction first more easily. Because at the moment, there's no way of finding them, as I will now point out to you. And by the way, if you're one of the agents that came to the roadshow, there's so many of you, and I didn't get back to all of you before Christmas. We're going to be proceeding with this whole project to allow any agent in the country that wants to adopt this process of getting faster transactions with happier customers and higher fees. But we're going to be doing it as a club so that there's no bottleneck to how many of you want to join. And we're going to be doing it mostly by video conference, so not live stream, but by video conference, a regular video conference where everyone can share their experiences of how it's going, what's working, what's not working, and create a community of agents who actually give a shit about improving transaction times for their customers, for themselves, and for the industry and the market as a whole. Because once we've got enough agents doing that around the country to prove that it works, the old ways will start to die out very quickly as people realize how stupid they are. Now, let me get to, let me just check the comments. Okay, no one mentioned the cup of tea. Okay, that's good. I'll come back and look through the questions if they come to, if they're relevant to this, right? Selling price, starting price, that kind of stuff. And Ant H, your question there about, well, how do they come up with a starting price to launch? We call it the launch price, and how they arrive at the launch price is a critical part of the whole process. But this video is not the place I'm going to go into the details, but getting that launch price right first time is part of the secret of the success of this process. No, I'm afraid, sorry, Carrington's only sell, because I mentioned them a couple of times, they've had quite a few sellers contact them from well outside their area. So they don't sell in the north, no. Right, let me read this email to you. Okay, so this is from a seller. And I'm going to go through this part, one step at a time. Hello, Charlie. Happy New Year. I've been watching your videos. They're really helpful. But applying the advice in practice is tough. Now, that is the first person to actually verbalize something that I've known to be the case. Applying the advice in practice is tough. I want to help change that. I don't know how yet, but for those of you who've been following my videos and hearing the advice but find applying it in practice tough, I want to solve that problem. So, we are owners of a share of freehold flat in London looking to upsize because we're expecting. It's our first sale and I have serious agent fatigue. God, you'd think it would be easy, wouldn't you? We want to launch in 3 weeks, but haven't chosen agencies yet. We've had valuations, okay, let's just stop on that point for a second, from 8 or 9. Planning to pick 2 with a winner-takes-all approach. Now, I've already replied and said, having more than one agent is not actually a good strategy. You want to pick one and partner with that one. Going multi-agent means your listing appears twice, it looks desperate, and it's demotivating for the agents. They won't fight against each other just to sell your house when they've got lots of other houses to sell as well. It doesn't have the effect you think it would have, okay? So it's counterproductive to go with more than one agent. You want to pick one and you want to team up and partner with them and work with them and get behind them and support them to sell your house. Now, let's keep going. Listen to this story. I just want you to hear how hard this process has been for the seller. We have had off-market viewings. They were eager, the agents, probably to lock us in before Christmas. Correct. That's exactly what agents do to try and get you. It's one of the tricks agents use to try and get you to sign up with them. They do off-market viewings straight away with no obligations. If you watch that video about my colleague Sam selling her house, there was that I played you that phone call from that agent trying exactly that trick. Had she fallen for it, she would have sold for a lot less money. We haven't signed anything. Well done. Congratulations. One agency asked to take the pictures. This is another trick that agents use to try and get you in the door. They're just trying to get the process going with you. We agreed, but they're annoyed we haven't signed. In other words, the agent's annoyed that this seller hasn't fallen for their trick. You offer photographs with no obligation, then it's no obligation. You can't get annoyed when they don't sign with you. I requested terms first. They delayed a week, then another week. Okay, so this is a sign of a disorganized, chaotically run agent. If you request their contract terms, like sole agency, etc., and you don't get them, that's like, hang on a second. Isn't it December and aren't you really quiet? Why is that taking so long? Pictures were taken, then they sent terms. I didn't like them. I asked to remove the sole agency, which is the sole selling rights, and to shorten to 6 weeks and remove the withdrawal fee. They sent back the same with minor crosses, not full changes. So in other words, the agents sent back their terms with minor crosses, not full changes. So they just crossed stuff out rather than change the wording. Lots of back and forth. They keep resending the same. They're keen on the phone and WhatsApp, but not email, which is annoying. The off-market asking price is $750,000. Before Christmas, they said one viewer wanted to offer $699 and that they were working on better. Now, this again, if you watch my video, and most of my subscribers actually come from there was a secret filming of 11 agents, right? If you've watched that video, do you remember the part where that agent who calls up and goes, we've got a really keen buyer, they want to offer. Hang on a second, they haven't seen the house yet. How do you know they want to offer? So can we get the viewing? We'll get it booked in, get an offer for the good money and take it from there. These are all the tricks that they try. And a lot of sellers fall for it. So they said one viewer wanted to offer. You see, that is an obvious lie. There are no people who want to offer before they've viewed. Sorry. This was a view. This was someone that had they had done an off-market viewing. So they had viewed. They said that one of those viewers wanted to offer 699, but they were working on a better offer. The next day, a formal 700 was offered. We asked for it in writing. They sent a text-like email. They called saying, the agent then called me saying, there's a big deposit, but we're trying for more. Next day, nothing. Following day, 735. We said no. 20 minutes later, a verbal 750. We accepted. We asked for confirmation in writing. They never sent it. Now, what you're witnessing here, guys, is the kind of tricks agents will pull just to get you to sign a contract with them. And this feeds into why overvaluing happens and why they want long solidity contracts signed. Because agents, even though when they say it out loud, they know it doesn't make sense, agents think that winning instructions so that their competitors don't win them is more important than selling them. Not all agents, luckily, but most agents. Now, if you can do basic maths, you understand that that is a really, really illogical, numerically flawed approach. And it's why the market doesn't function better. And the reason is because they've got this mantra, which is, well, you can't sell it if you haven't listed it. Yeah, that's true. But if you list it at any price on any terms, then you're not going to sell it anyway. And it's going to lose you money when you haven't sold it. But, and again, I proved this with the Carringtons, right? Let's just take this off. I can't believe I fell for that. There's going to be real trouble. Let's keep going. There's more to go through here. So we accepted the offer, the verbal offer of 750, asked for it in writing, and it was never sent. We were interested in buying our next property. So we told them, because we've accepted an offer, we are proceedable, and we made our offer. Their agent, so the agent selling the house that this seller wanted to buy, wanted proof and details of our agent. Yeah, quite right. So I provided it. I also gave our agent a heads up email. You'll be hearing from these agents who want confirmation of our offer being accepted. Almost immediately, he called, sorry, another home came up and the buyer offered on that one and they've accepted it. No, that's a phantom offer. Never existed. And that's why they didn't put it in writing. It feels like they have been playing us along just to get us to sign their contract. Correct. Now, post-New Year, all agents are back contacting us. We are committed to selling, but no agent has a clear strategy. Right. It's very, very good that this person has identified that no agent has a clear strategy, because the advice I always give is that the one question you should ask an agent is, what is your strategy to ensure we get competing buyers? I don't want any evaluation. I want to know, what is your strategy to get competing buyers? Because that's the only thing that matters, right? Because without competing buyers, we don't know we've got market price. And obviously, none of them have a strategy. That doesn't surprise me, by the way, because most agents don't have a strategy. They list it, whack it on the portals, email out their database, cross their fingers and hope. That is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. She then asks me about how agents usually go about changing their terms. They seem externally drafted. Agents cross out poorly, creating contradictions. It feels like no one ever asks them for changes. Correct. And that's exactly what I want to change. Hardly any seller will ever say to an agent, sorry, can we change those terms? But there's nothing stopping you from doing it. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. Does an email confirming new terms suffice? Yes, it does. Is it wise to pick two agents or just one for launch? Just one. She says, we've got agent A, agent B, agent C, and agent D, all to agree to the same terms, which is 1.5%, which was driven by agent A's competitive rate. They've all agreed 6 to 8 weeks and no withdrawal fee. Did you hear that, right? They've all agreed to this seller's demand. All 4 of these agents said, yep, we'll agree to those terms if you instruct us. That is how easy it is to make sure you don't sign a long sole agency contract. They will all renegotiate if they think they're going to get your business. Last point here. No, I've got no idea if the price is right. Some influenced me by asking me how much we wanted, and then other agents then matched that price. One gave a 675,000 to 795,000 range. 675 to 795. Could everybody who thinks that valuing a property is actually a thing now realize that it is not actually a thing? Because if someone says, could be 675, could be 795, is that a valuation? Like, even with the loosest term, the loosest description, is that a valuation, or is that a wild shot in the dark guess because they don't have a clue? Now, what does it mean when an agent gives you a range like that? 675 to 795. So one of the reasons that agents do that is what they're trying to do is say, look, if we just tell you 675, which is what we really think, we know you're not going to go with us because you want 750. So we're going to give you the 675 up to 795 so that we've given you the hope that might make you happy to sign with us, that we might get 795. But we've also said 675 so that when we realize that we're not going to get 775, we'll be able to say, well, we did say it was 675 up to 795. So whenever an agent goes, well, this is our range, 675 to 795, what they're saying is it's 675, right? That's what they're saying. That's what they're telling you. Now, this person said that they feel that they're being lowballed. Well, again, as a seller, provided you get an agent that actually gives you creates a market for your property, you will find out what the market for your property is, right? And then only then do you have a decision to make. Do I want to accept what the market is offering for my property, or do I want to not accept it and stay where we are? Okay, so do not attach yourself to a figure. It's always a mistake to do that. Okay, the job of an estate agent is to manage expectations on both the sellers and the buyer side and trying to manage them into a deal that everyone agrees. And if you have unreasonable or even any expectations on price, they're always going to be too high, almost always. And that leads to pricing it too high, not getting enough people through the door, failing to create a market for your property, and either not selling it at all or selling it for one lousy offer further down the line. All right. And by the way, I know you're watching. That 750 offer was total horseshit, in my view. It didn't exist ever. I mean, I wouldn't even speak to that agent again. I would also, if you haven't found an agent with a strategy, I would keep looking. Where you are in London, there's a very wide range of agents, and I would just keep looking. And I would be looking for an owner-managed independent agent who's been there for a long time, who has and just say, look, please can I have a no bullshit approach? How can we make sure that you create a market for my property? How do we get multiple people through the door to ensure we get competing buyers? I want competing bidders. That's all I want. As long as I've got competing bidders, I will accept that that's what the market is for my property. Right. Okay. I've got a few comments I want to that are on this topic that I want to cover. Wow, that's interesting. Sorry, that's off topic. I can't take that question now. No, that's terrible advice, Lee Marsden. I'll come on to that in a minute. That's terrible advice. But yes, sorry, you've got lots of comments there. I'll tell you which one it is in a minute. Louise Phillips, I'm going to answer your comment. Always make your offer. Always make your offer. There's never any reason not to make an offer. Always make your offer. Okay, right. Let's take some of these points and questions. All right, here we go. Okay, Ant H on X says they must come up with a starting price to advertise. So what point does this amount get announced to the seller? And does the seller still have a say in the final advertised price? It gets announced to the seller when they have reached a decision on what the launch price is. The seller has an option to not proceed at that point if they're worried. But the whole basis of the agent is you trust our process. You don't worry about the launch price because the launch price has nothing to do with the final achieved price. And by the way, Carringtons have achieved between 3 and 11% above the launch price, between 3 and 11% above the launch price every single time. The launch price has a separate task. The only job of the launch price is to communicate to buyers that you are serious about selling. Now, that doesn't mean you price it cheap. It means and it's a very, very sensitive number, and you've got to get it just right. And they take quite a long time to determine that. And it's the most important part. Once instructed, it is the most important part of the process. Okay. And it's interesting because a couple of times when they have turned around to the seller after the time it's taken to work it out and they're just ready to launch, some of the sellers have balked at the launch price. And they've said, look, this is our process. This is how it works. This is what we tend to achieve. Just trust us. This is how you get a stronger market for your house. And in all instances, the sellers have once they've been reassured, agreed to proceed. And what you find out is that within 48 hours, you've got so many viewings booked, the sellers go, okay, you found the market. And all sellers understand that once you've got competing buyers, the asking price gets ignored. Just gets ignored. Now, Sue Benison makes the point, if you are shit hot on what is happening in your area, you will have a good idea of what you may achieve when selling. How are you shit hot on it? There's no public access yet until Best Agent brings it the transparency on prices. There's no public access to what stuff is just sold for. Okay, it's very, very difficult. And all the agents and the lenders and the house price indices all put out stuff that overstates what prices are actually being sold at. Okay, it's very, very hard. So first of all, it's very hard to be shit hot on what's happening in your area. And secondly, even if you are, it doesn't tell you what your house is going to sell for. And as a seller, accept and understand this. You will always have rose-tinted spectacles about what your house is worth. You will always think it's worth more than somebody else might think. Always, right? And it's the most important reason. It's the most important mistake you must try and avoid. You've got to just try and be, if you are a seller who says, I'm looking for an agent that believes in my house, what does that mean? What does that mean? Believes in your fantasy idea of what your house is worth? That's what it means. Okay? Because no belief should be required. What should happen is that agents should take your house to the market in such a way that they create a market for your house and you discover the value. That's it. You can't sell it for more than someone's going to pay. End of story. No exceptions, ever. So I always say to agents, if you're with a seller who goes, well, we're looking for an agent that believes in our house. What you're saying is we're looking for an agent that shares in our dream. It's not reality, it's a dream. This means it's not going to happen, right? So it's very, very difficult. And the reason, Sue, I'm telling you this is because even agents who are doing this all day, every day in their own area, often will look at a house and go, geez, that's really, really, really tough to work out what price to launch this at. It's really tough. There just aren't enough comparables, or it's got some unusual things about it. It's really, really tough. Okay, the market decides, no exceptions. And Thomas Selway asks, what price do Carringtons put on the adverts then? So I know this is kind of answering Ant H's question as well. They put the price on that communicates three things. Number one, of comparable properties, this one is just looks like slightly better value than the others. Number two, it communicates this house is priced because the sellers are intending to move and sell. And there are other things about the listing that make that very clear as well. And number three, they put a price on that ensures they get lots of viewings. And that average number of viewings, I think, is 17. Some of them have been up to 25, 30 viewings. Now, Lee Marsden's, he's made a few comments that I agree with, but this one I don't. If you're desperate to sell, just auction it or sit and wait. No, in both instances, right? That is bad advice in both instances. If you're desperate to sell, then use the Carringtons approach. Use the best agent no valuations approach, because that will get you the fastest sale and the best price, right? If you stick it in an auction, you will get, it's a bit like putting your car in an auction. You will get less than if it's being sold on a dealer's forecourt, all right? You will get less at auction, because at auction, properties, there's a much smaller number of buyers that go to auction, and they deem all properties that are at auction have got problems and have got risks associated, so they won't pay as much. So if you're desperate to sell it, just make sure you find an agent that knows how to create a market for your property and get the deal done quickly. Or sit and wait. Well, hang on. If you're desperate to sell, what does sitting and waiting achieve? Nothing. Waiting is not a strategy. I saw someone else today made a comment. In fact, I screenshotted it so I could read it out to you. Hang on a second. Here it is. This is just a few hours ago. I have a house that somebody recently offered down on. So in other words, they put a low offer in. It's an ex-rental that recently became empty. So I'm guessing they thought I would want it gone ASAP. But I need the money, every last penny. So I'd rather struggle through until the right offer arrives. Where's the logic? That's like, if I just wait, someone will come along and pay me what I want. A guy up the road took a 50k hit in his house. No, he didn't. The market for his house was 50k less than the asking price. That's not taking a hit. Asking prices are meaningless when it comes to an overvalued agent's asking price or a seller's idea of what they want. Remember, there are three prices for all houses: what the agent tells you it's worth, what you want for it, and what the market will pay for it. That's it. No others. Right now, it feels so personal, circumstance dependent, correct? Always, isn't it? So you may see an empty house that you think, oh, easy, cheap, but no, it's not. And you may see an occupied house and think it's expensive and possibly complicated, but no, they want it gone. Well, I mean, I agree with you that you shouldn't make any assumptions just because a house is empty or not empty. I agree with that. But in neither case does it alter what a buyer's going to be willing to pay for it. Now, Louise Phillips says, wow, I won't trust any agent now. Sorry. That's a mistake, because if you decide not to trust any agent, then you will end up not trusting the ones that you can trust if you find them. Now, an agent that doesn't initially try and tie you into a long sole agency contract immediately gets, in my book, a higher trustworthiness score, because they are not trying to lock you into them if they fail to sell your house. They're saying, we're going to sell your house, and if we don't, you can leave. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to sell it, but it is a vote of confidence in their ability over the other agents, right? And in some cases, there are good agents that do try and sign you up to long sole agency contracts because, it's obviously in their interests to do so. But the market is so full of overpriced property sitting on agents' books, not selling because those sellers can't leave that agent. That clogs up the market. Because if those agents were free to move if those sellers were free to move agents sooner, they'd be back on the market with another agent at a better price sooner, and things would start to speed up. Right. All right, guys. Do we have any other... Okay, Silverbud1 says, are agents obliged to disclose how many offers there are on a property you're interested in? Okay, this is a bit of a grey area. They're not legally required to disclose how many offers there are, but it's in their interests to disclose how many offers there are. The bigger problem is knowing whether or not they're telling you the truth. They're much more likely to exaggerate how many offers there are than they are to understate it. If an agent says, I'm sorry, we can't disclose how many offers are on the property, that suggests that they haven't got any, or they haven't got enough. If they say, oh, we've got lots of offers on this property, well, if there are lots of offers on the property, why hasn't the seller accepted any? And typically when they say lots of offers if they say interest, just ignore it. Interest is nothing. Interest is meaningless, right? Only offers count, and only concrete written offers count. But the way to get the best chance of a straight answer from an agent on this is to ask them by email. Now, they probably won't reply. But if you ask them by email to disclose how many offers there are on a property, not the amounts necessarily, but how many, some agents will reply and tell you that there are 3 offering parties or 5 offering parties, because if there are, they'll be proud of that and they'll be happy to tell you that there are. Now, don't forget that I've always said it shouldn't affect what your offer is, because you should always offer your maximum comfortable price, whether you're the only person or whether you're one of many people, because you shouldn't pay more than that ever. Yeah, the Diego Alcantara says, sorry, sellers, most properties are going under the overpriced asking. That old time is gone for most. Correct. Louise Phillips says, trustworthy agents are almost impossible to find in my area. Trustworthy agents, really good trustworthy agents, are almost impossible to find in many areas, but for 2 reasons. First of all, there aren't very many of them. You're talking about 1 in 10, right? Secondly, when there are trustworthy agents, there's no way of telling them apart. It's really, really hard. And that, again, is another problem I'm trying to solve with Best Agent. Sue Bennison says, talk about the drag of conveyancing, Charlie. Yeah, so I would say that after overvaluing, right, which is enabled by long sole agency contracts that you must never agree to, the number 2 cause of slow transactions and fall-throughs is poor conveyancing. Now, poor conveyancing is not, it's 3 things. Number 1, it's a failure by the agent to ensure that good conveyancers are chosen, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to use the ones that the agent suggests, but all good agents say to you, I don't care which conveyancer you choose, but you must choose a good conveyancer. We know who the good ones are, we know who the bad ones are. If you're using a bad conveyancer, we're not going to recommend your offer. Okay. Secondly, the conveyancers themselves, right? When you got a crusty old bloke sitting in his office, been doing it for years, and he can't give up, and he won't give up, and he doesn't answer the phone, and he takes a day off, your deal's going to suffer. When you have a really cheap call center conveyancing type place, again, they don't make enough money to do the job properly, and those ones have the highest fall through rates. But also, the third reason that conveyancing is a drag is that often it is the movers themselves, my dear followers, who are a bit sloppy and a bit slow at getting your paperwork together, getting questions answered, and actually being progressive. Because it is a team effort. All right? As a seller, you've got to be a good agent a good team with your agent and a good team with your conveyancer. Okay? And your agent, this is another reason why getting multiple offers is so important, because you want to have the pick of offers. And one of the considerations as a seller when choosing an offer is to ask the agent, which conveyancers are they using? Are they using good conveyancers? Because you don't want a buyer that uses a cheap conveyancer. Okay? Because that buyer is more likely to fail to complete the transaction. Right, guys. So let's just wrap this up again. Please spread the word. If you're a buyer, spread the word, because this helps buyers too. If you're a buyer, if you're an agent, and if you're a seller, this helps you, okay? If sellers are not tied into long sole agency contracts, more property will be on the market at better prices sooner. Okay, so this is why this is a relevant video even for buyers, and so you understand it, okay? The reason there's so much overpriced property is a combination of overvaluing agents cashing in on over-optimistic sellers' hopes and fighting over each other for business. And as I proved with Carrington's, if you take a different approach, which is we don't give you value for your property, we follow a process that always delivers market value. Sellers are like, that's great. And if they don't deliver, you can leave straight away. Okay. So never sign a long sole agency contract. 6 weeks with 2 weeks notice. Insist on it as a seller. And if they say, oh, I'm sorry, it's policy, just say, well, then we can't go with you. There are plenty of agents to choose from. And in that video, there are 11 estate agents who all agreed that they would accept an instruction with no contract tie-in period, just a rolling 2-week notice period. Okay, so any seller who signs a long sole agency contract either hasn't read the contract or doesn't understand that that's a really silly thing to do. This is one of those two things, because there is no upside or benefit to you as a seller signing a long sole agency contract. All right. And I will name them: Foxtons, Dexters, and Connells have long 3, 4, 5, or 6 month contracts. I think Dexters is the lowest at 3 months with 4 weeks rolling after that. So that's 4 months. Foxtons is 16 weeks plus 4 weeks notice. And Connells is up to 26 weeks. It is an affront for them to even ask you for that commitment. All right. There's a video linked in the description below where I talk about why you shouldn't. I talk in a lot more detail about why you should never sign a long sole agency contract. So if you haven't watched it, go and watch that. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much. It's good to be back. I know most of you are buyers, but it helps you guys too. We've got to get rid of long sole agency contracts. Have a fantastic night. See you on the next one. And remember, always buy a home if you want.